So, New Zealand. Nice place. Strange then that so many people there seem to have a death wish. Bungee jumping was invented in New Zealand, and now they've come up with an even more spectacular bridge to the next life. It's called the Zorb ball. I'm speaking to you now from inside the ball, which is suspended on a cushion of air inside a much larger outer ball. Now the idea is that I'm going to get to the top of a hill and roll down, where centrifugal force will hold me against the side, causing my body to tumble end over end. What a ridiculous plan. Oh my God. Oh, here comes breakfast. And here it comes. Here's lunch. Oh God. You think this is insane and suicidal. Wait till you see what happens when you introduce a New Zealander to a piece of river. When we first came up with the idea of doing this series, I said, fine, I'll go in powerboats, I'll go in jet fighters, I'll go in helicopters. But there is no way, shut up, there is no way I am going whitewater rafting. Look, these are the bones of people who've done it in the past. It is a spectacularly uncool way of dying. Shut up! I have a motto. Never trust anything that doesn't have an engine. New Zealand's finest invention was the jetboat, which you see here doing a 100-mile river race. Looks like clean, safe fun, but this is New Zealand, remember? So it isn't.
So is this the sport you do out here if you can't play rugby then?
Basically it is when you get too old. When you get too old you play around with boats.
Are you able to sort of pre-plan, have a look at the river?
You can go up on the day before, but on a day like today where it's raining, the river changes overnight. So you can plan, you know, that every corner, next day you wake up, the river's completely on the other side of the bank. So it's not much point in really doing the river before.
So you're doing it blind?
You're doing it blind at 100 mile an hour, 80 mile an hour sometimes, and just hoping. The biggest problem with the boats, as soon as the engine fails, you have no steering, you have no brakes, you go where the boat is pointing.
Pay attention. This is a profile of a jet boat. Now there's a hole in the bottom into which the water flows. It goes along into a chamber where it encounters a sort of vaned impeller. Now that squirts the water under pressure along a tube that gets narrower and narrower till it comes out of a nozzle at the back at what scientists call a fair old lick. Now steering, here's the back of the boat, there's the nozzle sticking out. You've no rudder, so to turn right you simply point the nozzle that way. To turn left, you point it that way. But hold on a minute, you're thinking, what's the matter with a propeller? I mean, that simply grabs the water and pulls you along. This grabs the water and pushes you along. However, this is a conventional boat with a propeller sticking out like so. Now this is a jet boat. This means you can drive a jet boat at whatever speed you like in a puddle.
It was invented by a chap called Bill Hamilton. Having done the first ever 100-mile-an-hour lap of Brooklands, he came home to design a boat that could handle shallow water. A jet was the obvious answer, but there were problems, so he enlisted the help of a young engineer.
The #1 boat had an underwater jet, and it didn't work at all well. When that was shifted to straight out the back, the speed of the boat improved immeasurably. And then we realised that Newton's third law of motion, if you throw something one way, the boat will recoil the other direction. So we realised that water did not have to hit the water, it just had to be thrown backwards.
When you look around the world and every beach has a jet ski rental outfit and the blue ribbon holder across the Atlantic was jet powered and jets are everywhere, do you feel enormously proud of what you've done?
I suppose I do. It was Bill Hamilton that set the environment. It couldn't have been done without him, and he started it, but to be part of that development has been terrific. Really enjoyed it.
Now, it's one thing fiddling about on New Zealand's rapids, but to show the world what a jet boat could really do, they set off in search of some real water. The Americans say no one ever navigated the Colorado, but this film shows that in 1960, Hamilton's son John did get a jet boat up America's most fearsome waterway. So what were the biggest problems then on the Colorado?
With us, it was first the drivers who only had New Zealand shallow water experience learning how you drive boats in these huge waves, this colossal water.
And look at the state of that water. You couldn't get a jet boat through that, could you?
Well, that is
Yes.
what we're looking at now. That's the big rapid in the Colorado. Yes, we did get it through.
When you're sitting at the bottom of something like that, looking up, what's going through your mind?
You're trying not to let anything go through your mind.
Quite.
Well, we're having a run at it here, and I think you'll see in this particular bit a big lesson I learned. Just do not go into a place like that. Just look at that. You see the boat nearly submerges.
Made it. Having beaten the worst America could throw at them, they looked round the globe for an even bigger challenge, which they found in Africa. What happened to the Zaire then? What was that all about?
The Zaire was so big and some of the areas were so wide, you would have a sea-going conditions superimposed on river waves, and we got the most terribly mixed up water. You wouldn't know what it was going to do next.
I'm sorry about this, but I'm looking here at this footage, and I think there's a moment where challenge stops and folly starts, and some of what you're attempting is folly.
Oh, it's not folly with a good jet boat, is it, John? They're quite safe.
Were there times when you were scared?
Oh, yes. Plenty. But still, what do? You can't step out, so you keep driving.
Today, with the world's dangerous water beaten, they've gone back to tackling their own, only faster. They call this sport jet sprinting. I call it aquatic suicide. Well, that all looks so safe, you're probably wondering why I haven't been out in one yet. Well, truth be told, I did my back in that Zorb ball. But thanks to the wonders of modern medicine and these neck braces, I am able, you'll be delighted to hear, to go for a ride. So, how to describe this thing? Well, look at it this way. A supercharged V8 water pump nestling in a soap dish. Whoa! When you're old, sitting on your porch with a nice glass of single malt, it's important to have a lot of cherished memories. But this boat is going to make pretty damn sure that I don't get to be old. I find it very difficult to explain to you what these turns are like. I mean, extraordinary G-force that you have to lift lift off going down the straight, so you can get the power on, and must have steering when you go through the corners. Oh, wow, this is a seriously glorious machine.
It is thirsty though, which is why the jet boat failed to kill off the more economical propeller. However, in the world of military aviation, where fuel economy plays second fiddle to speed, it was a rather different story. Just after the war, America was groaning under the weight of nearly 300,000 piston-engined fighters and bombers, all of which had been rendered pretty much useless by the crummy limeys and their jet engine.
B-29s, B-17s, by the hundreds, cut up at Powell, Texas in 1950s and melted them down. Some places they had just dug a hole and buried it.
They had nothing else to do with them, and they're scrapped all over the desert in the United States. All kinds of warplanes, hundreds and hundreds of them.
Happily, some were rescued by an organization that reckons these old warbirds were the last of the real flying machines. It's called the Confederate Air Force. Rather worryingly, it can now field 135 planes and nearly 8,000 men. The pilots may look like they need their food to be mashed, but there are countries that would kill for an air force this big.
The name's Duck. Sitting Duck. I'm in the bomb aimer seat of a B-29 Super Fortress. I cannot conceive of the terror that these guys must have felt in the war. Sitting up here with a whole load of Jerry and Jats trying to shoot them out of the sky. Whoa, look over there. I tell you what, if our camera was a machine gun, I'd look like a piece of Emmental cheese now. This is mind-blowing stuff. I mean, really, really mind-blowing.
Today, only one B-29 is still flying. And if it weren't for the Confederate Air Force, there'd be none at all. It was formed in 1957 when a bunch of ex-Air Force types bought an old P-51. They all adopted the rank of colonel and got themselves another plane and another, and some uniforms. And then they got a logo. Now today, a serviceable Second World War fighter would cost $500,000. But back in this guy's prime, you could buy one instead of a car.
Some of the rare airplanes today, they just went out and picked up for nearly nothing.
I could buy airplanes for $125.
$1,250 for P-51.
BT-13s with less than 100 hours on them.
Bearcat would probably be on $2,500.
I could have bought a Corsair for $1,050. And they were selling them as junk. Flying airplanes.
The Confederate Air Force started out as a bit of all-American fun, but now they'll take any warplane from any era and any country. This two-seater Spitfire is theirs, and now they're talking about getting a B-1, which is a nuclear bomber.
The best whole picture is the Confederate Air Force. They have more of the fighters, more of the bombers, more of everything than all the other organizations put together.
We were the only ones that wanted to gather a representative inventory of all the warbirds, not for show, but to fly, restore them, keep them flying.
You know, it's all very noble, saving these planes and preserving them and keeping them flying, giving people a chance to see just how far removed these bombers are from today's jetliners. In the event of an emergency, no oxygen masks will drop down from anywhere. Floor lighting will be provided by huge licks of flame coming out of the engines, and the emergency exits are located, well, there's one there in the floor, there's one here into the bomb hatch, and there's another one here to the back of the plane. The thing that you have to remember, though, is that the Confederate Air Force was founded by a bunch of good old Southern boys who basically were sky-high joyriders. And you know, the people who are in the organisation today are still at it. They're like nothing more than to get up there with the angels and blow the world halfway to hell. Today, the Confederate Air Force puts on an annual show in Texas where they recreate famous air battles. This is Pearl Harbor. The skies are filled with the sound of wounded Zeros, while the ground reverberates to the sound of wistful reminiscing.
About every time I flew, I got hit because we were badly outnumbered. With the Zero, they had us beaten in maneuverability and speed. The thing we had the Japanese beaten with was durability and firepower. And if they were dumb enough to get in range, they were in trouble. Of course, we worked with a scissor back and forth to each two airplanes so that we always had eyes and guns pointed all ways. If they came in above us, we pulled up into them, see? And then the wingman would be right on your tail. But they would sprinkle you, as I called it. So you'd find bullet holes in your airplane. And like the one time I landed, and I said, well, I got by this time without a single one. And a guy named Danny Doyle says, well, what's that hole right behind your head?
I like the Confederate Air Force. They're not precious, but they are American, which means they have the annoying habit of giving off this distinct impression that they won the Second World War all on their own.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what
Yes, sir, I'm very grateful to any organization that shows the present-day people what has gone before to make life possible to live it the way it is today.
Anybody that has been through the World War II area who realized that these airplanes and the pilots that flew them and the people that maintained them were responsible for our kids not speaking German or Japanese today.
This really must needle Uncle Sam. The world's only supersonic jetliner, and they had nothing to do with it. But you know, the weird thing is that everyone who's ever been on Concorde only ever has one thing to say. It's a bit smaller than you'd think.
I can see what they mean.
By modern model-making standards, the body is nothing much to write home about. Bit of plastic here, bit of balsa wood there, and some splashes of Humbrol down the side. But the engines are amazing. They're 4 baby jets, which come from Mechachrome, a company better known this year for providing Frank Williams with his horsepower. So, does it work? Of course it does. Now, you wouldn't be allowed to fly a model plane this big elsewhere in the civilized world, but they have no time for silly rules in France. And that's why when it comes to model making, France is ground zero. And this garage just outside Avignon is the epicenter. It's here that you'll find Pierre Scerri. He's a telecom engineer by trade, but has spent most of his adult life making an absolutely perfect scale model of the Ferrari 312 PB. He not only had to make every single part himself, but he also had to make and design the mold for every single part.
I wanted to make something like a dream. A Ferrari which we can have in the dining room. It could cost a lot of money to make such a car. For me, it cost maybe 20,000 hours because I had no money. It was my challenge to learn how to make everything in this car. I just took photographs of the real car and I made all my drawings from this photograph.
How long did it take you to do the drawings for it?
3 years. To make the car, 12 years. When I was young, I saw Ferrari in many races, and my dream was to get this sound, this music at home. I could not buy one, I had to make one.
No, it's all right. Music isn't a bad translation. The main reason why this took 15 years to make is that under the body, you'll find a scaled-down version of the original engine, which actually works. It makes the Ferrari music.
I made that engine all by myself because I had to make it to get the right sound. I had to make a 12 cylinders engine.
But I mean, that's just unbelievable. So what, you turn the piston going up and down?
Yes, it is fuel injected and dry sump. And this is a 100cc flat 12 with 24 valves because this is a 4-stroke engine.
Hold on, you made, don't tell me you made the valves.
Yes, here is a valve. And the valve springs here. I put 5 gears and reverse also.
You've done reverse?
Yes, reverse, yes. And,
so the gearbox works?
Yes, yes, it works.
Does it drive the wheels?
Yes, yes, sure.
So the car will actually work?
Yes, the car could run if we could find someone to drive it.
And would it feel like a normal Ferrari?
Yes, I think it, because everything is present. The shock absorber, the steering system is the same. I think it could feel like a real Ferrari.
Are you proud when you look at the car?
I'm glad to end this project. Proud, yes, maybe.
Amazingly, he now wants to make another one. A Ferrari P4 perhaps, or maybe a Ford GT40. But this time he wants to use outside help, which means he has to sell the original. It's worth many, many thousands of pounds, but I can conceive of no finer toy. Unless, that is, you're looking to spend millions, in which case you must head on over to the finest toy shop in the world, in Arizona. You know what I'm hoping? These people take credit cards. I'm at the Davis-Monthan airfield near Tucson, where friendly governments can simply pop down and buy pretty much anything that takes their fancy, providing, of course, the US Air Force has finished playing with it. Some of these wonderful F-4 Phantoms, and there are more than 1,000 of them here, are going to be used as drones. They'll put electronic, computerized, radio-controlled pilots in the cockpits, send them up into the big blue yonder, and use them as target practice. They're going to blow them up. They're going to shoot them down. Ah! It's a complete tragedy. Then there's this wall of B-52 bombers. Under the terms of the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, they're just being chopped up and left in the open for the Russian satellites to gawp at. More bad news. A lot of these planes may be slightly out of date, but they're being kept in reserve in case America goes to war with someone more dangerous and better equipped than Western Samoa. If push came to shove, they could be combat ready in 8 days. Nevertheless, a great deal of the stuff is for sale. See this F-16? 1975, P-registered, and yours for £7.5 million. I want 2 of those, one for me and one for my wife. Now then, when am I going to get the children? I'll get them Harriers. My mum, oh, I don't know, what would she, B-52? Now we could play Bomb West Thurrock on a Wednesday if it were boring. Sister, oh God, we're going to get her. Sister, oh, the helicopters. We're going to get the Hueys, we've got loads of Hueys. 10 Hueys.
Skeletons under the floorboards. Meet the ancestors, next on BBC Two.